Big deal. Death comes with the territory. See you in Disneyland. That was the reaction of California's Richard Ramirez upon receiving the death penalty for killing 13 people in the mid-1980s. Ramirez was dubbed the Night Stalker because he would hunt at night, often slipping through an open window or door and surprising his victims while they slept. Before Ramirez, beginning in the late 1970s, there was a predator in Southern California who killed in much the same way. Unlike Ramirez, however, this Night Stalker has never been caught.
Fact of the matter is, this offender was called the Night Stalker before he was. So when initial media inquiries came in on this case, I merely mentioned that he was referred to as the Night Stalker prior to Richard Ramirez. Therefore, in a sense, he's the original Night Stalker, and for some reason that stuck.
Leslie D'Ambrosia is a criminal profiler working in Miami. In 1998, she receives a call from Larry Poole, a California cold case detective looking for a new angle.
The most important part of developing an unknown offender profile lies within the crime scene assessment. The crime scene assessment is the crux of the analysis. And what we look at is how the offender behaves on the crime scene and behaves with his victims, because we can then generalize how the offender behaves in his day-to-day life.
D'Ambrosia digs into the original Night Stalker case files and begins to work up a profile. She determines that the offender is disciplined, intelligent, and organized. A man who plans his attacks meticulously and then hunts for women who, in his mind, are worthy victims.
All these victims were very affluent, established in the community, considered very nice women. And in the offender's mind, these women were not nice women. And the way he behaved on the crime scene shows how he wanted to degrade and humiliate and make these victims suffer.
Women are the focus of the original Night Stalker's rage. The presence of a man, however, does not deter this killer. Rather, D'Ambrosia believes he enjoys the challenge of defeating a man, raping the woman he loves, and then killing them both.
He would receive a heightened response in being able to control and manipulate a male as well as a female, and together on the same crime scene, because the core of his behavior is that he controls and manipulates individuals.
D'Ambrosia provides cold case detectives with a finishing touch to her suspect profile. She tells them that once the original Night Stalker starts killing, he would find it all but impossible to stop.
This is a compulsion. Within himself, he's forced to do this. He can't stop himself. He will continue to commit the crimes as long as he is out and he is free. He has an insatiable drive to commit these crimes.
D'Ambrosia's conclusions beg the question, are there even more crimes that detectives don't know about? Crimes that can be laid at the original Night Stalker's doorstep? As detectives ponder that possibility, 6 hours north of Orange County, inside a DNA lab, answers begin to emerge. Paul Holes is a criminalist for the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office in California's Bay Area. One day in 1997, he comes upon a collection of old files.
I had noticed that there were some case files in a file drawer that had been marked with the red letters of EAR on it, and so I started opening up those case files to see what they were.
Holes discovers that EAR stands for East Area Rapist, the moniker for an unknown suspect who police believe was responsible for more than 50 sexual assaults in the 1970s, crimes that 2 decades later remain unsolved. For over a year, the East Area Rapist enjoys free reign in the city of Sacramento, breaking into homes and raping women while their husbands are tied up. By November of 1977, the attacker has raped more than 30 times and left nary a clue for police. The Sacramento Police Department decides to hold a town meeting. Over 600 people attend. Some of them are angry. Almost all of them are scared.
A gentleman got up and said, I cannot believe that these rapes are happening the way you say they are. He said there's just no way that somebody could be tied up and not be able to do something about their wife being a victim.
Within a month after the meeting, the man who spoke up is bound hand and foot with rope, while the East Area Rapist sexually assaults his wife. Police believe that the rapist could have been present at the meeting, actually targeting his next victims.
I think it's very possible that he was there at that meeting. I think it was the enjoyment that he got, feeding from the media, being challenged by what was happening in the community.
The East Area Rapist is expert at keeping his face covered. After more than 50 assaults, police still do not have a good description of the attacker. With time, the East Area Rapist ups the ante even further, actually calling his victims and taunting them after he has raped them. One such phone call was captured on an answering machine. Police believe that this is the voice of the East Area Rapist.
Listening to the tape, it sends chills up your back. I mean, it is very, very frightening. He was a very frightening person. You have Zodiac, you have Son of Sam. None of these people put the fear into a neighborhood like this man did.
Then, in 1979, the rapes simply stop. Eventually, the evidence is packed up and put into cold storage, and that is where criminalist Paul Holes finds it 20 years later. In July of 1997, Paul Holes extracts DNA from semen samples left at several of the East Area Rapist crime scenes. Comparing the samples against each other, Holes confirms what case detectives have contended from the outset. The vast network of rapes are the work of one man.
At that point, I drew the conclusion, okay, the investigators who had linked the cases using the MO of the cases were correct, and the physical evidence, the DNA, was supporting what the investigators' conclusions had been 20-some-odd years ago.
Paul Holes finds his way to the Orange County Crime Lab and criminalist Mary Hong. She has identified the DNA profile of an unknown serial killer called the original Night Stalker, a killer linked to 10 murders and 8 rapes in Southern California. Holes asks Hong to pull up the original Night Stalker's DNA on her computer.
He read off the profile to me, and I looked at what profile I had on the case, and it was a yes all the way across.
We have a match. We have a DNA match with Orange County on this case. And it took me a couple of seconds to digest it, and then it was, wow, you know, this is big.
According to cold case detectives, California's original Night Stalker is responsible for over 50 rapes and at least 10 unsolved murders. There is also a chance that he is still at large, still committing crimes. Larry Poole, however, is convinced that the cases can still be solved and the Night Stalker caught.
This is always a case where if I find somebody along the course of business that meets the profile and has potential as a suspect, I don't care if it's on my own time, I will look at them as a potential suspect. I'll never give up.